That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Beverly Hills Cop Axel F., the directorial debut of Mark Molloy, of course, the fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie, which Netflix is releasing July 3rd, 2024.
Directorial debut.
Yes.
What is this movie about? Detective Axel Foley is back on the beat in Beverly Hills. After his daughter's life is threatened, she and Foley team up with a new partner and old pals to turn up the heat and uncover a conspiracy.
That sounds very much like that RuPaul song I can't stand. Old friends, new friends silver.
Silver, old friends gold. What's your pull quote?
A desolately plotted excavation of Eddie Murphy's first iconic role, the fourth installment of Beverly Hills Cop is functional nostalgia porn, crafted solely to replay the greatest hits, but not daring to say anything new.
Oh, mine. It appears Axel Foley should have stayed in the 80s.
Well, to be fair, this is better than Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Well, that's why I'm saying the 80s, because that one's in the 90s.
Right, that's 94, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really care for this one. It is better than the third one, and I guess it's okay for a Netflix film.
Yeah.
Which is like a new thing now.
Yeah.
Because they're all so shitty that it's like, I guess this one is better than I expected.
There's so many opportunities. I think that it could have been strong. It just could have been stronger on all fronts.
Yeah.
But notably, it's got three writers: Will Beall, who also recently wrote Bad Boys Ride or Die, which has a lot of similarities with this film, but also Tom Gormican and Kevin Etten, who wrote that Nicolas Cage film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh. So the story, Axel Foley is still in Detroit being a detective, and it's 30 years later when he gets a call from Judge Reinhold, who still works for the police department.
Rosewood.
Law enforcement. And he tells Foley, your daughter is in trouble. So Axel Foley has a daughter. She's 32.
Her name is Jane.
Plain Jane.
Why is her name Jane?
Why is a man whose name Axel?
Like what? Why isn't her name something like Piston?
And he even mentions like, oh, her last name's.
She's changed her last name.
She's changed her last name because she's mad at her dad. So
there's a whole scene about how boring her new last name is, and it's like.
But your first name is Jane.
But it's Jane.
Anyway, Jane is a criminal defense attorney.
Played by Taylour Paige.
And she's trying to get this accused cop killer off the hook. Mm-hmm. And we see in the opening that she gets, like, her life is threatened. So Judge Reinhold calls Axel Foley in Detroit and says, your daughter needs you.
Because it's Rosewood's fault that she's involved anyway.
So Foley shows up to Beverly Hills, immediately gets arrested by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And guess what? Joseph Gordon-Levitt used to date Plain Jane. So there's a connection.
Detective Bobby.
But we find out, not unlike in Bad Boys 4, that there's corruption in the police department. Kevin Bacon.
Captain Grant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he says, I can't afford to buy a house in the city I got shot in, and that's why he's in collusion with the cartel.
Mm-hmm. Getting him flashing Rolex watches.
But, of course, the trio of Axel Foley, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Plain Jane take down Kevin Bacon. They kill his ass. And then, of course,
Captain Taggart is returning, John Ashton. Mm-hmm.
Axel Foley mends his relationship with his daughter, and it would appear that Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Plain Jane might rekindle their romance because he says they broke up because she wouldn't date a cop. Like, that's how much she can't stand her dad. But she has a change of heart in the end after talking to Taggart and after seeing her dad get shot. Because Eddie Murphy does get shot in the shoulder, but he's totally fine. The end. Paul Reiser's in the thing.
Yeah, he's the Detroit police captain. Yeah.
My favorite part of the previous films, Bronson Pinchot's in it.
Serge.
With nothing to do.
Yeah, actually, the one bright little moment in Beverly Hills Cop 3 is Bronson Pinchot, and I feel like he has nothing to do here.
I'm just gonna go through my notes. Eddie is keeping that hair dark. He looks great. But his hair's quite elaborate.
It's too dark. It's too dark. It's like Morgan Freeman circa Kiss the Girls. Like, a little gray's okay.
I think I knew what we were in for from the very beginning because the opening scene is Axel at a hockey game in Detroit, and we hear "The Heat Is On" by Glenn Frey.
Glenn Frey.
But that's playing in the intro as he's. But so I mean, it's definitely relying on nostalgia from the previous films quite heavily. And then at this hockey game, because notably in Beverly Hills Cop 3, Eddie Murphy did not want to be like comedic. He was trying to be like an action star. So I think that's one of the reasons why that film fails. In this one, he does seem to be a little more lively.
Yeah. But strangely still, the comedy is very low key for Axel.
Yeah, he feels sedate. And a lot of the commentary feels dated to me. Like in the hockey game, he has tricked another police because Axel's always in trouble. Paul Reiser doesn't want him destroying property. The same old, same old. So he tricks this newer cop to meet him at a hockey game because Axel's trying to take down some drug dealers. So they have a conversation, which I did think initially was funny because the guy goes, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be into hockey." And Eddie Murphy's like, "Why not? Because I'm black. I'll have you know that my great-grandfather was a member of the Winnipeg Black Guys hockey team."
Which
That was funny.
it's fun, but you'd think that that's just a joke, but there actually was, it was called a Colored Hockey League in Nova Scotia.
Well, I want to get back to this topic because I feel like we can just talk about it now.
Yeah.
So the first two films happened before like the Rodney King incident and the LA riots. And then the third film happened after like OJ. And I felt like certainly the first two films wouldn't have maybe spoke on any of this, but the third film really avoids anything related to police brutality. So I was expecting in this film maybe that we might get a little bit of that. And we really don't. In fact, Axel Foley's character confronts 4 different black characters and sort of like mistreats them in a way that I found really odd.
I agree. And I think that's just because the white creatives that are behind these films are oblivious.
I mean, I don't know. The first time is at the hockey game. Axel Foley sees a black male security guard and he goes, "Oh, I think they're going to rob this place because I recognize that guy. He's affiliated with this other bad guy." So they go and like detain this man and like handcuff him in a rough way. And then we find out that that person really is working. So that was weird. Then when Axel gets to Beverly Hills, he parks his truck illegally. And so a parking enforcement person, a black woman, is giving him a ticket. And he's sort of disrespectful to her. A funnier moment is that lady trying to stop him because he steals her little go-kart. And then he knocks her off the go-kart. Then another time, Axel's doing illegal things and a police officer stops him and says, like, "Put your hands up." And Axel's like, no, I'm a Detroit police officer, and he's not respecting her. And this woman is a black woman. And I'm just so confused. Like, he's a police officer. Shouldn't he know how to talk to another police officer?
You'd think.
So that they feel safe and that they can get this situation sorted out. I found it really odd and annoying. And I know that that's his character trait, that he's off the handle and ridiculous. But I don't fully remember the first two films. But in this film, all of his little schemes, they don't work. In every instance, someone has to help him, either his daughter or Joseph Gordon-Levitt, get out of it. So he just seems kind of like this weird relic.
Yeah, and the two 80s films did feel like they were fluff compared to something like his debut is in 48 Hours, Walter Hill's, with Nick Nolte. And if you rewatch that film, it's kind of shocking, kind of the racial tension going on in that. But I was really hoping this fourth installment would be like Tim Story's Shaft reboot in 2019, which I really liked, because of also this the central character having a child that they're kind of estranged by because of their behavior, and I don't know, it just misses all the beats.
Well, and keeping with that theme, Paul Reiser doesn't have much to do, but in the beginning, he's telling Eddie that things have changed, which is like, well, haven't y'all been working together for the past 30 years? He's talking to him like they just reunited. And he's saying, well, things have changed. People, they really just want social workers out here. And then I'm like, oh, so is this like commentary on like defund the police, Black Lives Matter? I don't know. But then it just drops. Like there's no follow up. It seems odd to me that they didn't take this opportunity to sort of update Axel Foley to be more aware of, because he does tell that initial cop in Beverly Hills, well, I'm a black man and a cop, so I know how things can get out of hand. But he's saying that to a black woman cop. And it just felt like he was talking to like some old white man. It just didn't make sense to me.
Well, I also don't. I think it's feasible that we would hear like, "Are you gonna retire? Are you tired of doing?" You know, if you think of which Lethal Weapon is it, where Danny Glover's like, "I'm getting too old for this," and he's straight up like 40.
Well, especially in this film, because Paul Reiser announces he's retiring from the force. And then Taggart, that actor's name?
John Ashton.
Who I think is the best of all the people who returned. I think he does the best work. He even says like, well, everyone wants me to retire, but I hate my wife so much I don't want to be at home. But so it's like all this talk about y'all doing this for too long, and then Eddie Murphy's still out here like, yep.
Yeah.
And then how, so he just gets to leave Detroit for an indefinite amount of time?
Yeah, like, what about work?
I know it's meant to be silly, but it just is a little too silly.
I think beyond the first one, they all kind of had that problem with explaining, like, why is he back in Beverly Hills?
So I liked the return of Taggart. Paul Reiser has nothing to do. Judge Reinhold, I wrote down he looks like if you mix Mickey Rourke and Glenn Close.
I think Timothy Hutton is a good
or him
comparison as well.
And then Bronson Pinchot as Serge. The only thing he provided us is a segue to my favorite part of the film, which is Kevin Bacon is using this mansion in Beverly Hills to hide some evidence and do some nefarious things. So Axel Foley's trying to get access to it. And the only way he knows how is to pretend that he is this rich guy whose daughter is getting married. So he brings along Plain Jane and Joseph Gordon-Levitt to look at this mansion to potentially buy it for them. And Serge, Bronson Pinchot's character, is sort of the middleman to get him to the real estate agent, played by
Nasim Pedrad from SNL.
And she was by far the best part of this movie.
Oh, yes. But it's like, what did I say? It's like interludes on an album. It's like there are those moments, but nothing in between. And you can't support a comedic film on moments like that. But yeah, she just stands out so much. However, I had to watch through the end credits because I thought it was her, but
well, because she's not on IMDb for this role, but,
right?
I think, yeah, Bronson Pinchot just had nothing to do, which was a bummer. There's a point where Eddie's doing a Jamaican accent that I just thought, like, I don't know, he just seemed kind of tired. And then a lot of his shtick lately, it all sounds to me like Hercules, and
Yeah, again, he's depending upon it feels rote, and I think that's where we probably need to talk about Taylour Paige, who I like a lot more than you do, and I like a couple moments with her where she's kind of pushing back against him, and in fact, she has two kind of emotional scenes that I think are better than the material of this film.
Sure.
But she's also, I think you brought up a great point as who should have been probably cast as the daughter.
She is so sedate and she's mad at her dad. So every scene is her sitting there with a scowled face, like annoyed by her dad and not really doing much. And I think it would have made more sense to pair him, like his daughter be someone who's a little more sassy and fun, like a Keke Palmer or like a Jess Hilarious, someone like that, to bring out the funny in him.
I think Keke Palmer would have challenged him to rise to the occasion, something to scratch his claws against. But
because the only time Taylour Paige works for me is, like you said, there are like two times when she kind of challenges him. One is they're looking for like some evidence, the car that the cop who was killed was driving, and it's at an impound lot. And the person working at the impound lot is this little gay guy who's like an aspiring actor. Mm-hmm. So Axel Foley's doing his thing where he's pretending like, oh, I'm an agent scouting. And, oh, are you an actor? I think I recognize you. And it's kind of amusing, but Axel Foley, like his little thing is not working. And then that's when Taylour Paige sort of tries to like flub him because she's mad at him. Mm-hmm. I thought those moments, they weren't funny to me, but they definitely were in the direction of like someone needed to challenge this character to force him to like do a little more. Because otherwise, Eddie's just kind of there. Like,
Yeah, it's really odd.
he does look nice, but I mean, he's just there.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like an absent energy, because I think a lot of these scripts for these movies were usually dependent upon him supplying what he does, which is his talent, and zhuzhing everything up.
Yeah. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, when he arrests Eddie Murphy, he has his police file, and inside the police file are all these stills from the previous movies. Like, how did they get a shot of him being arrested like that?
Because they got these old...
Oh, because they took a screenshot from the trailer like I do.
No, they probably had... It's probably from old press kits for the film.
But that being said, Eddie does have funny moments.
We didn't bring up... Another, I think, amusing scene is with Affion Crockett.
Oh, sure. They're trying. Eddie and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are trying to like get away somewhere, and they're at a country club, and Affion Crockett plays the valet attendant. And I thought that scene worked well because Eddie was paired with a comedian who was being funny, and yeah, like had that energy been maintained throughout all of this character's interactions, I think this would be a really nice comedic throwback to these cop comedy action movies of the 80s.
And, you know, granted, we're not going to get away from certain cliches considering it's a franchise film, but to me, this attempted interiority for these characters is so lazy, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt he's also had dad issues, and he's the one that provides Eddie Murphy with the key of, you know what I didn't like about my dad is he was so selfish, and then one day he finally apologized to me, and Eddie Murphy's like, well, I'm not going to apologize, I have nothing to apologize for. It's like, this is the dramatic tension you're giving him? I don't know.
I think also, like, Axel Foley, that character in the 80s was so inappropriate, which was part of why it was funny, right? But in 2024, that's why I'm saying he should have been left in the 80s. This character can't do the things, all the gay jokes and the race jokes and being inappropriate, like, and the ultra violent. Every time someone got shot point blank in the head, it shocked me because this movie feels PG-13, except for the F word being used and these, like, sort of violent gunshots.
Well, or keep that energy, and the comedy would be his confrontation with a new generation that's like, oh, that's not okay to behave that way or say those things. And I think that could have been something that they could work with.
Who's that comedian I like? He's the white guy with a buzzed head, and he did that movie where he's like a new dad, and like Bobby Cannavale's in it, and it's like the three dads, and they live in LA, and they're like not politically correct, and they send their kid like a Montessori school, and it just came out, and we reviewed it.
We did?
And the star is a very popular stand-up comedian who I like.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Anyway, that movie I think suffers kind of like this one does, where it's like someone who's known for being very like outspoken and edgy is forced to kind of like...
Is it Bill Burr?
Bill Burr. That movie.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like this, like, we needed to let Eddie Murphy do Axel Foley like how we know. There is a funny scene when Axel Foley's in the car with his daughter and Mary J. Blige's Family Affair comes on and Eddie's singing it.
Well,
I thought that was really cute.
He's getting the words wrong. But...
Oh, there's another character, so Chelina. Who plays that?
Chelima, Luis Guzman.
Oh my God, that was the worst part of the movie.
It's the worst scene in the film.
I don't know. So he's the head of this cartel, this like ultra violent cartel. And I think that not only is he supposed to be gay, but like the gang members are. That shit was so weird. And they all look like they went online and bought like body tattoo stencils and just slapped them anywhere. They look crazy. Then we finally meet Chelina. He is in a bar doing karaoke and he's singing a Spanish version of Man Eater.
Which was nice.
Which was funny when you hear it, but then you see him and it's like, it looks like he's wearing makeup and he has glitter. He's singing Man Eater. And then like the staff at the bar look gay to me. I don't know what that shit was about. Cause then it's also like, Axel Foley's dealing with the gay impound lot guy. Then he goes to a private club to try to find Kevin Bacon, and the host working there is this gay guy. Then you have Serge, who's driving around a Rolls Royce with the custom license plate that says Power Surge. And then you have Chelina. I don't know, it just seems weird that because in the 80s movies, the way Axel Foley would have talked about these people is very different than how he interacts with them now. And I don't know if that's the script trying to show like Axel Foley's progressed.
I don't think so.
Because then it just seems like so random. But the dialogue written for Chelina was terrible.
Well, because it's trying to do a lot, and also being the segue to the next moment of the film. Because he's also the uncle of the man that Taylour Paige is defending.
Yeah.
But it's like it feels like there's this. It looks like they created this whole backstory for this character that was just cut, and I don't know if because they thought maybe the comedy around it was too risque.
In the final act, Axel Foley and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are trying to escape the police station where Kevin Bacon had them detained, and this is where we get a call back to earlier in the film when Joseph Gordon-Levitt said he could fly a helicopter. Like he used to be a helicopter pilot for the LAPD, and then we realize why he no longer is, and now he works for Beverly Hills PD because he can't fly a helicopter. That made no sense. So you could fly a helicopter well enough to do it for a period, and then all of a sudden now you can't. So they get in this helicopter and they're flying around LA, and then they crash. I thought that was really stupid.
And there's some, I think, camp moments because you have, I think it's Kevin Bacon shouts, "If it weren't for that goddamn SD card," because that's what they're looking for.
Speaking of Kevin Bacon, he has Plain Jane like hostage, and at one point she goes, "My father's maniacal focus drove me insane."
That was my next note.
And I was like, is she talking about Axel Foley? Maniacal focus?
No, nothing maniacal about that man or this movie.
Then the movie feels too long already, and then after Axel Foley gets shot, he's in the hospital. He sneaks out because he really wants like good food, and then the final scene of the film is he sneaks out of the hospital again. And that's where Judge Reinhold and Taggart are waiting in the car because Plain Jane asked them to keep a lookout on her dad, who doesn't even look sick. He just got shot in the shoulder. He looks perfectly fine. And she's acting like he's under, like, in grave danger. And he gets in the car and convinces that the three of them go get some steak.
Which is a callback to another scene from the first film. And again, I think that if you're big fans of the first two films, there's a lot of callbacks, including with the score that, again, it works better than in Beverly Hills Cop 3.
That was my final note. The music is used heavily in this film, and a lot of it I liked, but it does feel like the score is like a main character, and the soundtrack are main characters of this movie, including like a reworked version of that original theme from the movie by Lil Nas X, which
the lyrics to that Lamborghini Boulevard, oh my god, it felt
I was expecting more, especially hearing Eddie Murphy on the Kelly Clarkson show talking about how it took so long because he was waiting for the perfect script, and this was the perfect script. Okay,
maybe the perfect paycheck.
What would you give Beverly Hills Cop?
Well, my final is a shout out to I guess obscure Dustin Hoffman movie title, but who is Axel Foley and why are we saying all these terrible things about him? I would give it 2 out of 5.
I would give this film 2 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.